Is the national identity of Ireland under attack? Yes, I believe it is. And this has been going on for a very long time. We all know that the British Empire took control of Ireland and conquered Ireland, and Ireland was a part of the British Empire for some amount of time. This was an act of colonialism. The attack at that time was on the culture, traditions, and the language, right? So there's potentially big attacks as well on our history at that time as well, by the burning of books, by the destruction of cultural artifacts, etc. This actually happened as well, inadvertently beforehand, via the Vikings and the Normans. But that's not what the video is about. The video is about, in more modern times, is it still under attack? And yes, I believe it actually is, because if you look at modern day governments, the authorities that run Ireland, the government of Ireland, the EU, the basically the mainstream media as well, who are acting on behalf of them, you could say the common culture, the shared history and memory, the values and symbols, the collective consciousness is all under attack. The traditions and folklore, essentially, you could actually surmise are under attack. I personally think the language is going through a very good revival, and I think this is really positive. Buíochas le dia, gohuntuk, because it's there's a lot of great people out there that are doing great works. So cohortus gach dinner, cohortus to all those people. And, I will give credit where credit's due that the Irish government does play a part in this. But there are a lot of other things that are happening. And to be honest with you, you have some people that will say it's all language, but actually, no, there's a lot more to it, right? But the language is huge. If you don't have your language, you don't have your soul. So, well, I know that I was traumatized in school and there was a lot of bad things that happened around the Irish language, and it's probably some sort of generational trauma as well, which I want to focus on the things that are actually under attack. Now, folklore, yes, you would have that, especially from the likes of the Unionists, the Loyalists, using Cuchulainn as an example of an Irish hero that they use to think like they don't understand the difference between Ulster, the province, and the entity of Northern Ireland. I do want to kind of come forward a bit to really, really modern times. So I do believe the traditions are under attack. Our history and memory is under attack because you have a lot of rewriting of history, and you do have our values and symbols under attack. And I've mentioned heroes already. You would definitely see, the Christian faith as well under attack, because the Christian faith is huge in Ireland. It's what kind of shaped us as a nation as well. And the landscapes of Ireland as well, through you know multinational corporations and all sorts of things. And then there is the collective consciousness as well, that kind of we're part of this story, this Irish story. And this is something that goes right back up to kind of like, there was really a sense of trying to garner or gain a sense of national identity, especially after the famine in the land leagues with Charles Stewart Parnell around that time. This was all the revolutionary period that led forward as well, because you could see a lot of the revolutionary period brought about the artists, the writers, and the actual people that went out and shed blood and also lost their lives for our country. This is all a part of the story. Of course, it goes back as well to Daniel O'Connell and the 1798 rebellions, Wolfe Tone. And the Young Islanders. There's all of that. That's all a part of the story. But this is all under attack, essentially, from the modern agenda, which is pervaded by, I believe, the European Union and the modern government of Ireland. So I'm going to go into this as well. And also, as I said, the media is a big part of this. And of course, they're working for the government as well. Cultural suppression, historical revision or erasure, global homogenization, political subservience, mass immigration without integration, shaming and silencing. This is all a part of uh, a, the attack against national identity. And of course, if you're talking about this, you're essentially a right wing activist, or you're automatically put into the far right group, because you have these other people that seem to think that you just label someone because this is the shaming and silencing thing. That's what these people are doing, because they're a part of the issue. They're a part of the problem, because they're actually working on the behalf of the government without them even knowing it. Or maybe they do, maybe some of them are paid. I don't know. But they're a part of the agenda. They're a part of the rewriting of what it means to be Irish. Also, with this, I'm going to go back in time through a timeline of events, going back to about 2002. As I said, this has been going on for generations. But just say in my timeline, in my life, I've seen things come about that have shown me that our national identity is under attack. And these kind of link into one another, and I will try to link it in as we go along with past events. So there's one event that's going to be linked to a more modern event, but there was this guy called Dean Griffin, and God rest his soul, he's dead now. I'm the type of person, even if I don't like someone, I'm not going to step all over their graves. I'm not like some of these people nowadays that are just so unbelievably negative. It's not like that. I don't stamp all over the graves of dead people. But this guy, Dean Griffin, he calls the Irish myth-fed mongrels. Now, you would probably recognize that this was a label that was stamped upon us recently enough as well. This guy was a former dean of St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin, reading from the Irish Times here. The Very Reverend Victor Griffin Anglican Church described the Irish as mongrel, mixed up and mid-fed people. He also dismissed the idea of one true authentic Irish tribe as a romantic fallacy. Of course, this guy had political leanings, and of course he had affiliations, and of course him being of a certain type of faith and being of a certain type of age, he was 100% against our identity as Irish people. The one big thing that actually happened for me in my journey and how I started Invasion Island and seeing this kind of real weird stuff happening was back around 2017, 2018. History was taken off the compulsory or mandatory subjects for junior cycle. We used to call it junior cert. So this was taken off, and I know a lot of people would be giving out about President Higgins and Micheál Martin, but in fairness to them, again, I like to be balanced. In fairness to both of them, they both came out and lambasted this and said it was a disgrace and that they were going to try to change it, and they eventually did. Okay, so but for a short time, for 1 or 2 years, history was taken off. It was not a mandatory subject like it always has been. From what I remember when I was growing up, history was mandatory. Even though I thought history was taught terribly, it still provided me something. And it still provided me some sort of identity in this world, even though I felt like the identity was a colonialist mindset, kind of a being of a colony mindset. It still was something to shape my thinking. So this was taken off for a short time, but it was reinstated from 2020. But this is where my spidey sense was tingling that there was something afoot here in the kind of machinations of government and authorities around the world, that there was something going on and that something was afoot in the plan for the erasure of national sovereignty. So then the weird thing is that even though Micheál Martin was championing bringing back history as a mandatory subject, at the same time he was doing speeches like, and I believe this was in 2017, there was a debate. Don't even ask me what the debate is about. I couldn't be arsed looking into this. The deputy Micheál Martin, quote unquote, said, "Let there be no doubt about where Ireland stands. We want nothing to do with a backward looking idea of sovereignty. We remain absolutely committed to the ideals of the European Union. We see the Union for what it is, the most successful international organization in world history." Now, this is where it starts ramping up, because what we're seeing here is we're moving from Ireland regaining its independence and sovereignty from the British Empire into this new age of, we're not that sovereign anymore. Actually, we are a part of this new empire, this new union, quote unquote. And look, we've been a part of it since the 70s. And of course, people will argue saying we had no money and we were absolutely poor. So that means we have to give away our sovereignty again to be okay again. Okay, fair enough. If you're thinking from a materialistic, narrow-minded point of view, with basically one view for one generation, yeah. But what does that mean for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren? What does that mean? Does that mean that just because you got some nice roads and some whatever. I mean, like, I think the thing is, which is weird about this, we got a load of money and then we lost it all. And now we're in the shit. And the whole, people can't even afford housing. So how are things even better? Actually, in those times when we were so-called poor, where we were poor and the country was in a bad old state from what I believe to be De Valera's time as president, because he completely turned the state into a church and state, which was the wrong thing to do. State should be separate from the church. This was Michael Collins' type of thinking as well. And this brought our country into ruin. And then we had to hand over our sovereignty again to the European Union. And then we got a load of money. And then they said, okay, just sign these contracts here, which were terrible contracts. We gave away all our resources. The government of Ireland basically sold our country out over the next couple of decades for nothing, for 12 pieces of silver. And now we are a part of this union, and we got 1% of the vote in the European Union. And literally, we're going to be probably part of a European army in the future decades. And they're just going to keep bombarding us with with their rules or regulations. And eventually, we won't have a country like we've known. This is the thing about the European Union. This is what they really want. I mean, it's quite clear. He's saying it here. We have nothing to do with a backward-looking idea of sovereignty. We remain absolutely committed to the ideals of the European Union. He has 100% given himself over to the European Union. We move ahead to 2025, and this links back to Dean Griffin, that guy. And this was the time when we were called on television, Irish were never homogenous, always hybrids, always mongrels. So this academic, Nick Diarmida, she said we're Irish mongrels. So she's really championing what Dean Griffin said about us. So she's like very much on board with what Dean Griffin thinks. There's no mongrel mix in me, like. And for the most people of Ireland that are born here and lived here, and they're not mongrels, like, they're Irish. But anyway, it's quite interesting to look at the absolute, complete and utter attack on our national identity, because as a people we have to feel a common bond, and we have to feel like there are a certain amount of a kind of a bordered common collective consciousness. This is not like something that is very much tied to everyone else. This is like a very much a sectioned off part of the world. This is what every culture, every heritage, every people have. So Blindboy, the much beloved Blindboy, who I really respected and actually still do in a certain way, because of how he's crafted out a livelihood in the system that he seems to kind of denigrate all the time. He seems to be very much opposed to the economic system that we have here, even though he is the one capitalizing off of it. But he very much is a Marxist, apparently. I don't know how he's a Marxist if he's capitalizing off the system that we already have. I'm not sure how that works. But he very much wants to purport this idea of Marxism on RTE when talking about the Christian monks, the medieval Irish Christian monks. So really, it has absolutely zero to do, like, this political ideology of modern day, including all of the socio-economic, systems that we have in this world, the political ideologies that we have in this world, even the religions that we have in this world are very much different to what was going on in these times, including the civilization, including the way things were done. So slavery in Ireland was a feature, like every single country in the entire world. Now, the type of slavery in Ireland, I'm not going to spend huge amount of time on this and I'm not going to say, oh, this is how our system was, so that makes it okay. No, let's look at it from an objective point of view, because when you're looking at the past, you need to look at it objectively to a certain extent, to look at it because it was 1,500 years ago when the Christians came here. So there was a system in the Brehon laws, in the way that things worked in Ireland, that it was a clan type system, king group type system. If you weren't in that system, you were an outcast and you would die. So basically, the Brehon laws definitely included unfree people. They were a part of the system. So if you didn't have a clan, or if you were the Christian monks were of the motto pray and work, pray and work. This is very much a massive feature. If people have a different idea of fat monks sitting around with loads of wealth, throwing gold coins around the place, I think they're hugely mistaken. The way the monastic systems were, they were the centers of learning. They were the center of agricultural community. These were important communities in Irish medieval history. So the Brehon laws included slavery in the sense that if you were unfree, you had a place, because there was the actual possibility for a lot of these what so-called servile inferior, they were able to make it out of this position. Not all of them, because some of them were prisoners of war and debt slaves and things like that. So I'm not going to sugarcoat this and gloss it over. But if for anybody that thinks that this is absolutely terrible, yes, it was, because it existed absolutely everywhere. Now, people often conflate the Viking port slaveries, like for instance, the Viking slavery with the Irish slavery. Now, the port city of Dublin was a Viking slave port and one of the biggest in the known world at the time, biggest in Europe. This was very much a custom of the Norse Gael. This was huge. I don't agree with the rewriting of history and kind of writing it in such a way as if the Christian monks were absolutely horrendous, when the Christian monks spent a vast amount of time writing down our oral histories and actually saving a lot of the documents from Europe during the Dark Ages. And I think he does mention the fact that he was into this side of it and he couldn't reconcile the whole slavery aspect. But it's just kind of like saying, but how can you reconcile anyone's history then? Because every culture had this. Moving on, this lady, academic Niamh Wycherley of Maynooth University, who actually worked as an assistant on The Land of Slaves and Scholars, which is very telling. She's basically calling Sitric Silkenbeard the greatest Dubliner of all time. So if you're going to call Sitric Silkenbeard the greatest Dubliner of all time, there's a few things wrong with this. First of all, the greatest Dubliner. The Dubliner is not something that... I mean, the Dubliners is a band, right? And a Dubliner is someone from the city of Dublin, as we know it today. I mean, can you even call anyone from while Dublin was under the British Empire? Can you actually even call any, say, for instance, Wellington a Dubliner? Like, I don't know. It's just very weird to call Sitric Silkenbeard a Dubliner. He was of Dublin. You know, he may be seen as one of the baddies of Irish history thanks to the Battle of Clontarf. How is this an attack on Irish identity? Again, as I said all the way through, what's going on here is going to be this kind of recalibration of Irish history. This is all a part of the, attacking an Irish identity. Is rewriting things and kind of reframing things like Blindboy was doing. So this is another reframing, because she's trying to frame this Norse Gael, right, born of the last Viking king of Dublin, Olaf Curran, to be some sort of cosmopolitan leader, European city kind of a thing. What the hell are you talking about? Cosmopolitan? Who was cosmopolitan? Are you talking about the slaves that were cosmopolitan? Cosmopolitan, including people from many different countries. What? What does that even mean? How can you call Dublin of the 11th century to be cosmopolitan unless you're including the slaves? It's a horrendous article. Like, it really is terrible, because how she's framing this then is through the epic saga of the Cogad Gael Nigalov, which is a propaganda piece, and every single researcher of note, or any historian, amateur or otherwise, amateur or professional, knows that the Cogad Gael Nigalov is a propaganda piece written maybe 150 years after Brian Boru's death. But when you're looking at the Battle of Clontarf, you have to look at it through the annals of of Ireland, and you have to look at it through the lens of real academic sources of today that have compiled all of this information and cross-checked it all, right? Like, for instance, Sean Duffy's Brian Boru in the Battle of Clontarf gives a hugely extensive overview of the Battle of Clontarf. It's a monster of a work, and it does not paint Sitric Silkenbeard as a baddie. It doesn't paint anyone as a baddie. It just paints the picture of the Battle of Clontarf as it was, which was a coalition of Dublin, Leinster, and Scandinavian invaders in an army versus Brian Boru's army, who had mainly Gaelic clans represented, with some mercenaries from the city states of Limerick and Waterford. The whole point was to subjugate the city, because Sitric Silkenbeard had a battle of Glanmama 13, 14 years before this, where he and his uncle Mael Morda kidnapped the Leinster king just because they wanted more power. This lady is painting Sitric like some sort of misunderstood hero. It's ridiculous. And Sitric was Irish born and bred. No, he wasn't Irish born and bred. He was, in the sense that he was born of an Irish mother, but he was also born of the last Viking king of Dublin. So I don't even think he would have classed himself like this, because he would have been of the Norse world. No Irish person, full Irish person, could have gone to the Kingdom of the Isles and drafted in Brodeer of Man, Brodeer of Man with his brother Ospak, who Ospak changed to Brian Bruside, and drafted in Sigurd of Orkney. An Irishman couldn't do that, but a half Norse Irishman could potentially do that. So anyway, there is a lot of back and forth with the Battle of Clontarf. My take is this: it was the last attempt of Viking invaders to take power in Ireland, meaning through Sitric Silkenbeard. Sitric Silkenbeard did not fight the fight; he stayed out. Now, I don't necessarily think, oh, that's absolutely horrendous. I think it's a bit cowardly, but maybe he was, in essence, you know, staying behind to protect the city. Brian Bruce stayed behind because he was too old to fight in the tent, where he was killed afterwards. But this whole, I actually respect Sitric Silkenbeard as the great survivor. I never think he's the bad guy. I think if I was to do a film on him, he would be he would be a villain, but he would be a villain that you may like, kind of like the Joker in. Now, he wouldn't be like the Joker, but you kind of like the Joker, like a villain that you may like. You know what I mean? And there always has to be a villain. And in the sense of the Battle of Clontarf, of course he was the villain. Himself and Mael Morda was, because they were the villains of what was trying to be achieved, which was the subjugation of the land under one monarch, so that we could potentially have one army and maybe actually fight invaders moving forward. Of course, people don't believe that Brian Brew was trying to do that, but I do. Anyway, moving on. So we move ahead then to the symbols of Ireland. So apparently now the tricolour has been hijacked by certain groups, and it's being used as a kind of a weapon. So I'm wondering that when in the olden days of the rebellions and stuff like that, was that the mindset of the empire? Was that the mindset of the people that were versus the rebels and stuff? Now, I'm not saying that there's a rebellion going on today, but what I'm saying is that there is an essence or an echo of it, because the government is acting on the behalf of authorities outside of our own foreign identity authorities, the European Union, and whoever else. So our government of Ireland has failed the Irish people. They are working on behalf of foreign entities, foreign influences, and they are not following the democracy of the people, because there is no democracy anymore. Things aren't voted for. The voice of the people is not being heard, and there is a mainstream media attack on Irish people as well. Because if you are presenting a case for against what's going on, you're automatically assumed to be racist or far right or anti-immigration, all this kind of nonsense stuff. and it's being polarized and divided, and everybody's being divided on purpose. This is all a part of the game. It's all a part of the oncoming problems, in which all of these entities will probably present a solution, some sort of solution that will encompass everything, which will be top down level, high level bureaucracy, high level um, invasion of privacy, and all of these things. This is all a part of the game. So a part of the attack on national identity is, of course, to start attacking the Irish flag, because the Irish flag has to be attacked, because it's a symbol of our sovereignty, it's a symbol of our country, and of course we have to label it as racist and things. So you have these commentators that are doing this, and you have the Garda commissioners coming out saying, "Oh, we can't rule out taking down flags. We can't do this. We can't do that." Try doing that up in the north of Ireland. Try taking down flags up there. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's right to have flags up everywhere, but because the government of Ireland aren't listening to people, they're just not taking on board what the people want, then that's what's happening. You're having this reaction. You're having reactions from people because they're not being heard, you know? So look, the national identity is under attack in Ireland. That's what I believe. So yeah, I'm happy enough to put this video out there because I think it's important, and it's important to talk about these things. It's not necessarily what I want to be talking about, but it's important to talk about it because if I don't talk about it, I will feel like I'm doing myself a disservice, my country a disservice, and the people that I love and cherish, the Irish people, a disservice. God bless everybody. And this is a country that has always been very good to immigrants and people that have come in and been hardworking. And we understand the immigration and stuff like that. And my girlfriend is an immigrant, but look, let's just call a spade a spade. It is what it is. Everybody knows. The government of Ireland have admitted it themselves, and everybody understands the situation. It's not normal. It's not a normal sense. We're just a small people, a tiny population with a small island, and it's being treated like like it means nothing. And it doesn't mean anything to these people. They don't care because they're being looked after with massive paychecks and their lineage being looked after. And that's all they care about because they're elite level political class, and that they don't care about anyone else. That's how it works. Nothing has ever changed. Things are always stayed the same in terms of empires. People think that the world has somewhat changed, or no, it hasn't. It's still the same. It's still acting on the behalf of the rich, the elite, the political class, and we are here to basically have our voices be heard. And thank God that I can have my voice be heard today. You can support me by donating to PayPal, to Stripe, not donating to them, donating to me via PayPal, Stripe, Buy Me a Coffee. And I would leave, they're all in the description as well. I don't know why I'm pointing over here because my laptop is here. I really appreciate it. Also, YouTube membership, $1.99 a month. There's actually walking tour replay videos on there, YouTube member videos, and also you get like just a bit of extra stuff like badges and emojis and stuff. It's just $1.99 a month. It's a way of supporting Bertie Brosnan films, and also there will be like a discounted on the merch. I think that's ending now though because I'm ending the store. But anyway, if you want to support $1.99 a month, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Also, you can leave a super chat or super thanks in the comments. This is another way of supporting Bertie Brosnan films. I really appreciate it. By watching this till the very end is another way to support, by sharing, liking, commenting. Also, if you sign up to my email list, I actually will email everybody about a video premiere in advance. So make sure you sign up for that as well. So with that said, thank you very much. Gora mila ma gwiv, goler ma cordia, slán go fóil, be made a kind. God bless.